Hello everyone, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Hannah, if you're new here, and welcome to the worst time of year for filming when you only use natural light. So apologies for the, glowing white skin that I have going on around my neck area. There's nothing I could do about that. I do live in Minnesota where, we are affected by the seasons, and of course sunset is at 4 and the afternoon light is a little bit of a problem. But we're gonna persevere and we're gonna film this video anyway. So in 2025 so far I have read 25 new releases, so books released in the year 2025. Of those 25 books, I've had some books that I've enjoyed, but in this video, I'm going to be talking about the 5 standouts from that list, the books that I enjoyed the most of these 2025 new releases. The first book I'm going to talk about is a nonfiction, Everything is Tuberculosis by John Green. Now, I gave this book 5 stars and absolutely, it's hard to say I loved it, but I did. John Green has such a way of not only providing valuable information and insight onto a sometimes harrowing subject matter, but he writes in such a way that it feels like a narrative. He writes as if he's telling us a story as well. We're following a person and their struggle with tuberculosis, and we get invested in this person, and it feels like a fictional character going through a journey, even though it's a real person's story. It's woven through this work seemingly effortlessly, and it just fits so well and feels like you're reading a piece of fiction, even though it's true. I left this book feeling such hope. I mean, there are moments in this book where things are so dire and there's so much sorrow, but by the end of the reading experience, I was filled with hope for a better tomorrow and even joy at having finished this little nonfiction. And so I can't say enough good things about John Green's nonfiction. At least I haven't read any of his fiction works, and this one was particularly excellent and heartfelt. Again, I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars and highly recommend you pick it up if you're interested in nonfiction or this particular subject. Then we have A Drop of Corruption by Robert Jackson Bennett. I gave this a 4.5 out of 5 stars. This is continuation after The Tainted Cup, following another murder, a mystery, plus political intrigue, which is my jam. I really enjoyed this story. There was a portion in the middle of this book where I was feeling like things were a little bit slow, but there was a moment where things kind of flipped, and then it was a race to the finish, and I didn't see some of the twists and turns coming. I think this works really well as a fantasy. It works really well as a mystery. I really enjoyed the characters of this work, and I can't wait to read more. I would read many Anna and Din detective sidekick type fantasy mysteries. These are excellent, and I can't say enough good things about this one either. The world building is expanded upon, and we are kind of on the fringes of the Empire in this one, so it's interesting to see a different perspective in this work. Oathbound by Tracy Deonn. I have given every single installment in this series 4.5 out of 5 stars. This is just a fantastic urban young adult fantasy series that continues to surprise me with how much I enjoy it. Not much of a young adult reader anymore, but this series kind of captures what I used to enjoy in young adult when I was a young adult, if that makes sense. We're following some great characters, epic adventures, secrets, and family dynamics, and friendship dynamics, and romantic dynamics, and everything is angsty and hardcore, and there's Arthurian legend mixed in, and this is just so fun and emotional and deep, and I can't believe what Tracy did at the end of this book. And who knows how long we'll have to wait for the 4th installment. But if you haven't read the series, even if you're not a young adult reader like me, I highly recommend picking up this series. The 3rd one by my reckoning, like, I think people don't love this third installment as much as previous installments, but I disagree. I think this one was just as good. It just had a different tone, and it was maybe a little slower paced than maybe the first two, but I still thought this was an excellent read. And again, I give it 4.5 out of 5 stars. You're gonna be sick of me. You're gonna be sick of me, but the next book is Vera Wong's Guide to Snooping on a Dead Man. I kind of hold it up here out of the glare. This is the sequel to Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers. We're following Vera, following another mystery, found family vibes, and we also get to see the characters from the previous installment and how they're all doing. And this one was almost better to me than the first book in the series, which is hard to say because I adored the first book in the series, but there were moments in here where I was actually ugly sobbing with my emotions just overwhelming and overflowing. This is about Vera, who is an old, lonely woman who owns a tea shop, and in the first book she finds a body in her tea shop and calls the police and decides they're not doing a good enough job with the investigation, so she's gonna snoop and figure out the mystery herself. And it's delightful, it's charming, it's warm. It also deals with some serious subjects in a way that I think takes those serious themes seriously. I think the author somehow manages to balance the cozy, fun, silly vibe of the book with also being serious about talking about some of the darker themes going on, especially in this second book. If you're looking for something that's more high stakes than the first book, this one definitely is ramped up a little bit in terms of the stakes. But again, I adored this one. 5 out of 5 stars. Sobbed like a little baby. Can't say enough good things about Vera Wong. I won't shut up about Vera Wong on this channel, so I'll just move on to the next book. The 5th book that I'm going to discuss in this video is The Memory of the Ugisi by Moses Osei Utomi. This is the 3rd and final book in the Forever Desert trilogy, which is a series of novellas that read like fantasy fables. And I enjoyed this installment. I did. I gave it 4 stars. But after finishing this book, it recontextualizes the entirety of the other 2 volumes in this series, which I think was so masterfully done, and it was very unexpected. This series is about cyclical violence, and the books themselves are kind of a cycle, and you can imagine the cycle just repeating over and over and over. And so I think there's something really special about this trilogy. I've never read anything quite like it. It's dark and kind of violent at times, and this author manages to pack an incredible amount of action, character work, thematic elements into 100 pages. These novellas are not that long, so I am thoroughly impressed by what this author is able to accomplish with this series. And so I gave the first book in the series like 5 stars, gave the second one like 3.5, 4 stars, and this final one 4 stars. But truly, this series should be read as a whole, because individually they don't tell the full story. I know, like, series, like, duh, obviously, but truly this feels like a cycle, and the cycle could just be repeated over and over. And I think the sum of the trilogy is better than the individual parts within it. And so I really wanted to shout this series out on my channel and talk about it being one of the best pieces of fantasy fiction I've read in the last couple of years. It's definitely up there as some of the most interesting and experimental and emotional pieces of fantasy I've read in a long time. Those are my 5 favorite 2025 new releases and my thoughts on them. Have you read any of these books? What's your favorite 2025 new release? I would love to know. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in another video of mine very soon. Bye!